to make sure that.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Just want to make sure it's something like didn't just slip off. All right. So we just want to talk about how God deals with depression, because again, we know how man deals with depression, and we know what the doctors will do. The doctors will prescribe a lot of medication for us, but we need to just kind of understand what it is first, and then look at and see, does the Bible talk about depression? All right. Does the Bible have anything in it that actually talks about depression? And if it does, then how does the Bible deal with it? And how does God deal with it? So this is kind of taking me out of my comfort zone, because I gotta look at some things on this thing, and actually, because I don't want to give the definition out of the context of where it should be. And so so we're going to take a look at this. And it was actually quite amazing, even to me, when it was on my heart to look in the Bible to see how God deals with depression, because I didn't actually think that I was going to find the word in there too much, because I couldn't remember, and just my reading actually running across the word depression. But in fact, depends on what translation you actually look in as to how many verses you will find that actually has the word depression. But then when you really actually understand what the word actually means, then you realize that the Bible is filled with the actual word itself. And so the Amplified, of course, went through and tagged a lot of those verses that that would actually have the word depression in it. Okay. And so let's just take a look at this just for a little bit, because this is something that's like really, really big in our communities and in our society now. I know Chris, when she was in high school, had a friend that was battling with it. He was on medication, if I remember correctly. Didn't live far from us. Got in an argument with his girlfriend one evening, and decided he would go down in the basement and separate himself from everybody, but he didn't come back up for a while, so they went down and looked for him, and he had hung himself. And so this is a kid that was in and out of depression, but I tell that story because in the final analysis, it wasn't actually the argument that did it, it was the medication that he was on that actually was leading down that road. So we've discovered that there are medications that they prescribe to people that actually give them suicidal thoughts. And so, and it's out there on the market, and doctors prescribe it, and this is just me. I believe that they know the side effects of this medication, yet they do nothing about it because it's all about making the buck. But God has something in His Word to let us know that there's a medication that we can give people and get them through this point in their life, and we're going to discover that probably all of us have dealt with depression in a form or fashion, and we just might not have tagged it as that.
That's right.
But let's just take a look at it just for a little while. So, what is depression? I kind of dug into it a little bit, and of course I've dug into the definitions, and then I dug it and then weighed it against the scripture to see just how accurate it was. But there are some words that likens to depression: sadness, hopelessness, fearful, low spirit, heavy-heartedness, despair, desolation, misery, woe, gloom, and despondency. All of those words actually fit into the category, if you will, of depression. So you don't, just because you're depressed doesn't mean that your mind is all over the place. Sometimes it's just your spirit is low. Mm-hmm. And you can operate with a low spirit for a very long time, and that is a depressive state. Okay, and what happens is in that depressive state, it's actually a feeling that happens first, and then the feeling of this low place takes place, and then there's a state and a condition of the mind that then that is activated, and then all of a sudden the mind is in a place of a low state as well. Right. So first it's just a feeling, but then that feeling then actually goes to work and does some other things in our soul. But the word that kind of locked into my spirit when I was looking at it was, I looked at the sadness because I'm like, there are so many people that are sad, that have a sadness, and the sadness comes for various reasons. I mean, things happen in our lives, things happen to our loved ones, all kind of things happen on our job that can cause a sadness. You know, a lot of people are fearful of various things, fearful of losing jobs, fearful of losing a spouse through separation, divorce, or whatever. And those things can take us to a place also of depression, if you will. So, so these are just, again, some words that actually lend themselves to the word depression. So I want to say that they're actually synonyms, if you will.
Right.
But despondency is kind of where we want to be. Despondency is a state of low spirit because of loss of hope or courage. Now, depression is the feeling of severe despondency and dejection. And so, you know, despondency taken into the realm of this low spirit. So a low spirit, and you kind of get there and you kind of get discouraged. And there are a lot of people that's running around that lose hope. And when a person loses hope, they don't necessarily have to lose hope in everything. They could lose a hope in a particular area. And let me see if I can make this plain and clear. You know, sometimes life experience helps you minister. And so I don't know if anybody's ever been in a place where you didn't lose hope in what God could do as God, but you might have lost hope in what God could do in a given situation.
Okay.
So you might have felt that God's hands was tied in a given situation because it seemed hopeless at that particular time.
Right.
It's like there's nothing God can do here. Okay? And I'll give you another, to expand that example. There's nothing God can do here because there is a person that is involved in what misery they're bringing my way, and unless the person is willing to make a change, then there's nothing that God can do. If they don't want to respond to God, then what is it that God can do? Because God is a God that gives us free will. He allows us to do what we want to do when we want to do it. So if that is the case, and if that is true, then you can get the thought of, well, this is a hopeless situation because God is not going to stop them doing from what they're doing because they don't have a heart to stop.
All right.
Okay? And so at that point, it looks like God's hands are tied. And so for us, that particular situation becomes a hopeless situation. And when it becomes a hopeless situation, whether we understand it or not, we have actually removed God out of the picture because we said we believe and trust in God and we trust in the power of God, but we think in this particular situation, God can't be effective.
Wow.
Okay? And it happens, you know, it happens to the best of us. I know some of us sometimes might think that we're holier than thou and way up here on this spiritual plane, but let me tell you, sometimes things can hit you in your life and hit you in an area of your life that you will have a moment of, oh my God, what can God do about this?
That's right.
You know, and you have to get yourself up out of there. You can find yourself kind of hanging out there for
Yes,
a while.
sir.
Come on now.
Okay, and so, and of course the enemy starts reaping havoc with that.
Uh-huh.
And so despondency is like really, really huge, and because of what it does and where it takes a person. So you know, you kind of keep all this in mind and in perspective, because when you encounter people, prayerfully by the end of this, we'll know what it is we can do. If I were to tell you, and I'm actually kind of fast forward a little bit, but if I was to tell you that Jesus was in a point in his life where he was depressed, would you believe me?
Yeah.
Because there was a point in his life where he was depressed.
Right.
It was in the Garden of Gethsemane.
Mm-hmm.
When the weight and the burden was upon him. And the terror of what was happening. The Bible says that he actually was in a place, if you read the Amplified Version, it actually says that he was in a place where he was depressed. You know, that he was actually depressed. And so, that's why I say if it can happen to him, if the feelings and the thought process can actually happen to him, then you think it can't happen to us? Okay, so from these definitions, we can start to see that depression is a state or condition of the mind, which is any number of feelings. Feelings like hopelessness, sorrow, despair, misery, gloom, sadness, and fearfulness. Okay, those things actually causes our mind to go to a state of depression or despondency. Okay, so the mind has to actually go there in order for you to be there. Does that make sense? Okay, if your mind doesn't actually get activated and get moved to this place of despondency, then you can never enter a place of depression. So the first thing that happens is a feeling happens because of something that's going on. So I like to say an external happening has to occur in order for me to have a feeling, right? Okay, let me see if I can explain it this way. If I come and smack you in the face,
Okay.
there's a good chance that you're going to feel that, right?
Right.
Yes, sir.
You're going to feel the physicalness of that.
That's right.
But then there's going to be an emotion that arises out of that, right?
Yes, sir.
And that emotion could be you want to smack me back. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. So there are emotions. So it could actually activate the emotion of anger. Okay?
Okay.
And that activation of anger, you might not get me right then, but that anger could fester
Fester.
until the emotion of it lodges in your mind, and then there's a condition or a state that takes place. And so I'm hoping that makes sense. Okay? So these emotions and these feelings that take place in the mind actually is what works out to be, if you will, this state of the depression or despondency. So the state or condition starts with feelings, and feelings are a part of our mind and our soul, mind/soul, because the soul is our mind. And we understand, and psychologists understand that in the mind is where your thinking process is where your emotional realm is, it's where your feelings are. Okay?
That's right.
It's where you make your decisions from. Okay? Me and the wife was talking about it, and we were saying, a lot of times people say sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
Right.
Somebody need to take that phrase out, because that's a lie. I would much rather for you to hit me with a stick or a stone than to bruise my spirit with your words.
That's right.
Because it's so much easier for me to heal from being hit with a rock or with a stick than it is for me to be hit with your words. Okay? And a lot of times we don't quite understand that. A lot of times we don't even remember when we fell and busted our knee messing around. The only remembrance of it, sometimes we see a scar. But the scar from something that somebody has done to you emotionally, the words that they've hit you with, and the pain that you felt from those words, and the injury that you received from those words, you carry that for years and years and years and years.
That's right.
It begins to shape who you are.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to get that out. People don't understand sometimes why people's behavior is the way it is because they're hurting on the inside. And psychologists can't fix that. All they can do is try to point you to that area and have you to be honest with yourself about that particular area. But they have no medicine that can actually heal that area of your life.
Okay.
And so this is really, really huge with God. So, in short, depression is a condition of the mind that happens because of some external events in which one feels they and even God has no control over.
Wow.
In these cases, the person doesn't see God as a solution to the internal feelings because the mind, the thought process, has become conditioned. Feelings brought on by the emotion that was sparked by the external event. And that's kind of a mouthful. What's coming to me was a mouthful. But there's an external event that happens that sparks an internal emotion.
That's right.
And that emotion, if we don't get it under control, will then condition the mind to a certain way. And that conditioning of the mind could be a place of hopelessness. It could be a place of fearfulness. It could be a place of misery. Some people are just in a constant state of misery because of some external event that took place. They can't seem to get out of this feeling of misery. I just feel miserable. Or some people just walk around because they're in a state of gloom. Their mind is in a state of gloom and they just can't seem to break out of that. And so some people try to medicate it. Some people try to use other things to get out of this place. And for a moment it seems like whatever that thing is that they're using to get out of it actually helps for a minute. But only when that thing wears off. Or whatever that thing was, whatever that sense of medication was, wears off, then they're back where they were. And so, the Bible has a lot to say about this place. Ezra, and you can just take these notes, but in Ezra 9 and 5, we find that Ezra was in a place of depression. Ezra got depressed. Why did Ezra get depressed? Because there was an external event that took place that took Ezra to a place of sorrowfulness. And the external event that took place was the sin of Israel.
Wow.
The sin of Israel took Ezra to a place of sorrowfulness about the condition of Israel and about what they were doing to God. And because he went there, that took him to a place of depression.
Yeah.
Because we said depression synonym is sorrowfulness.
Right.
So when you read in the scripture, it says that he was sorrowful. But by definition, we could use the synonym for that and say he was depressed.
Right. Right.
But why was he in this place of sorrowfulness? Because of an external event that was going on in the nation. Some people are very sorrowful and very upset about the conditions of their neighborhood, of the condition of the community.
Sure.
And it takes them to this place of sorrowfulness. Okay? Or this place of gloom. And so this is where Ezra found himself. His depression was one of sadness, one of sorrow, one of despair because of what the people were doing. But there's a cool thing about it, and we begin to now we're going to begin to see what it is, what is the real medication for depression.
Yeah. Okay.
Whatever synonym you want to use to define it, whether it's sadness, whether it's despair, whether it's gloom, or whether it's fearfulness. What is the medication that we can give someone that will bring them out of that?
Right.
If they're willing to take it. Because medication don't work unless you're willing to take it. Is that okay? So you still got to be willing to take it.
The word.
Okay? And so what was the medication for Israel? If you read the text, you'll find out that he rose up from his depression when he sacrificed unto the Lord.
Yes.
And sometimes we wonder why we pound or why we talk about praise so much and why we go to that place, because praise is our sacrifice.
Yes, sir. That's right.
Sometimes you find yourself in a place that nobody can bring you up out of.
That's right.
Nobody got a word for you, a touch, a hug. Don't do it for you.
Come on.
And so you got to find within yourself, you got to say, there is a medication that I know works because I found it in the Bible. And that medication is I can offer a sacrifice up unto the Lord. And in that place of sacrifice, while I'm praising the Lord, in that place of sacrifice, while I'm giving the Lord myself, while I'm sacrificing myself to the Lord, I find myself rising up out of that place.
Come on, that's right. That's right. Tell it.
I come out of despair. I come out of sorrow.
Yes, sir.
When I find myself in a true place of praise.
Yes, sir.
See, the praise can't come from an external source.
Come on.
No.
I can sing to you and you'll like the song that I'm singing, and that might stir you up for a minute, but that's an external thing that's happening.
Yes, sir.
It doesn't really take effect until the praise is birthed on the inside of you.
Come on
and
now.
the praise is coming
Come on.
out of you because it's on the inside of you.
Come on with the medicine.
Praise has to start on the inside. The sacrifice has to start on the inside.
Inside.
Yes, sir.
And when the sacrifice starts on the inside, depression is removed.
There you go. Thank you.
Whatever synonym for depression that we're using, it is removed.
There you go. It's that praise.
Ain't that something? That's just one aspect. That's just one piece of the medication, though. And I thought, wow, God, this is pretty big. You know, Isaiah 60 and 61, Isaiah 60 and the first verse, Isaiah tells God's people to arise from their depression, which was because of circumstances. They were to get up because the glory of God, of the Lord had come upon them.
Lord, hallelujah.
Listen to what that just said.
Come on now.
They were in a place of depression, in a place of despair, in a place of sorrow, in a place of sadness.
Yes.
Because of some circumstances that were happening outside.
Yes, sir.
Some external stuff. But God can send a word to you.
Yes, he can.
Because the word came through Isaiah. So one is I send up a sacrifice unto the Lord and my depression
Yes.
rises. Another is God says, I might have to come to you and give you a word from me to get you out of where you at.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
So sometimes God will touch a person to speak a word from him to you. And if you can receive that word, you ought to rise up out of that place of depression.
Come on. Thank you.
And that's what Isaiah said. Isaiah said, look, get up.
And he had to see him to see something. He says, get up because the glory of the Lord is on you.
Yeah. Glory of the Lord.
You're in a place of despondency.
Yes, all right.
You're in a place where the state of your mind is locked in to what is happening. The sorrow, the misery, the loneliness is locked in. But sometimes God's got to send somebody your way and say, I know what's going on in your mind, but I need you to look up, take a look, check this out. God's honor is all over you.
Come on, come on. Thank you, Lord.
Because his honor is on you.
Yes, yes.
You need to rise up. Because when the glory of the Lord is on you, that means you're above whatever the situation is.
Right.
So he's saying, rise up. And I like this because a couple of times we didn't heard him say, rise up, that depression rose up. And that is literally saying, depression is here, but he's saying, rise up. I'm going to rise up above this thing.
Yes, yes, yes.
And it's not my physical person that's going to rise up, but it's my mental person that's going to rise.
Come on.
Yes, sir.
Mentally, I'm rising up above the feeling that I have.
Yes. Yes.